Hey there. These are our brand new Viewsonic boards that were installed over the spring and summer. As you can see, these are very large, they are very bright, and that makes them easy to see everywhere in the room, which is awesome. Okay, they're also multi-touch, which means you can do multi-finger gestures on here, or you can either even have multiple people writing on the board at one time. Probably the best thing about these, the most obvious benefit over the old smart boards, is that they do not require a projector, which means no bulbs to burn out, and they stay calibrated. So no more doing the dot dance and hitting all of those to make sure that it's adjusted properly. These guys will stay adjusted, which is fantastic. Along with your board, you get 2 pens. These are not smart pens, they're simply styluses. So they will work to write on the board, but only if you tell the board that you're using them to write. Otherwise, they simply select things, just like it would if you tapped it with your finger. They have a narrow end and a fat end. But again, both ends simply work as a stylus, and they don't do anything besides what your finger would do other than give you some additional precision. But you have 2 of these guys, and they will attach magnetically down here to the bottom of your screen. Also, of course, you have your remote control. And your remote will let you turn power on, it will let you freeze, and it will let you adjust your volume if you're across the room from the board. With the freeze, at least the board and the remote that we have here at P-Tech, it's been a little flaky, so you want to make sure when you hit the freeze that you see this appear and stay. I've had it many times where I hit the button and it goes on and off like that. So you just want to make sure that it shows up and stays, and that means that your screen is frozen. With the screen frozen, you can zoom in and out. You can use these tools on the side that we'll talk about here in a minute, but it doesn't show what's going on your computer anymore. It stays there with that frozen. And of course, all 3 of those things, the volume, the power, and the freeze, you can do from the board as well. But you do have your remote so that you can trigger it from the desk or the back of the room or somewhere where you're not standing up by the board. Okay. On your board itself, your buttons are down here at the lower right. You've got some buttons here that we're not going to use because this board can pretty much operate in 2 different modes. One mode is the way we are going to have them used in our classroom, which is connected to a PC and operating over our district network. The other thing that they could do would be to be running on Wi-Fi with apps. And so there are some buttons and some tools built into this that would allow us to do that if we had chosen to set up that way instead of from our computers. But we're going to drive these from our PCs. Starting from left to right, we've got our power button. We have a home and a back button that we're not going to worry about because they're part of those apps tools that we're not using. We have a gear here, which you could use to switch back to the right input if it ends up getting set some other way. HDMI 1 is the right input for your PC. You've got your volume buttons, and that's the extent of what we've got physically here on the device itself. Coming out from either side, you have an array of tools that you can turn on. So one of those, the blue one, second from the bottom, is your freeze. So I can use that to unfreeze my screen. Okay. And now we'll come over here. So popping out from the side using those little arrows, we have 5 different buttons. These top 2 we're not going to use because those are the app things. This third one down, it's pink, and this is our markup tool. And it's just some really simple markup, pretty much freezes the board, and then you can write on top of it. So I can write in red, or I can use a highlighter. And that's pretty much it. I've got my broom icon that'll sweep away the stuff that I just put on there. I have a disk icon that would let me save my markup, and an X to get rid of those markup tools. And that's the markup. My third button down is my freeze to turn it on or off from standing up here by the board. Also, when it's on, I can hit the X to turn it off, either way. And then my bottommost button has a couple of little hand tools for the icons, a wrench and it looks like a screwdriver. And if I hit that, 3 out of these 4 things are cool things that we can use. The fourth one, again, would be an app thing that we don't have turned on. So our first one is a spotlight. So I can move this around my screen. If I use one finger, I can use 2 fingers and change the size. And then, of course, use the X to turn it off. I also, using that same button, pop out this menu and I can have a countdown timer. Which I can make big if I want to. Or I can come down here and make it small again. I also, down here, have a stopwatch tool, so I could start counting up. And I could even do lap times there if I wanted. So, there's my stopwatch tool, and that's the series of things that we can pull out from the side of the screen. Really, the only thing that the old smart boards had that we can't do easily with the same tools on the new boards is Smart Ink. But there are some cool tricks in Smart Notebook that we can look at that will help you do a lot of those same things. Oh, hey, totally thought I was done, but I remembered a couple of things that are important. Number 1 is just to know that this board isn't actually sensing touch. It's sensing whether or not my finger breaks a plane of infrared light going through these sensors. And so what that might mean is occasionally my sleeve or my finger might get super close to this, but not actually touch it and actually trigger it, and the computer thinks that I'm touching it. So if you're accidentally triggering it, you just want to try and make sure you point from a little bit further away, and then instead of going all the way up and touching the screen. The other important thing was for me to show, if you do accidentally launch some of those app modes, how to get back to computer mode on here. So if I did accidentally go into this app mode, my screen would look like this. And I've got 2 ways that I can get back. One would be right down here. There's an HDMI 1 that I could push. The other would be to use my gear button physically on the computer and switch back to HDMI 1. So either of those will work, either using the gear to get this menu up or tapping the HDMI 1 down there. If I accidentally went into the My Viewboard app, I have to act like I'm going to set up an account, and then I can close it and it goes back to my regular computer background. So those were the things I forgot when I recorded initially.